We are on February 13th or day 44, and today's devotion title will probably make you laugh a little bit. It's called Being Extraordinary. Now, whenever I see this word, I always say extraordinary. I don't know where that comes from. I know it is supposed to be extraordinary, but I just say extraordinary because there's just something extra about this word. And so I don't like to just slip over that part of it. So today's morning rinse is Daniel 4 through 6. So go ahead and pause this, read Daniel 4 through 6, or listen to it on your favorite audio app, and come on back. Today's featured verses are two. I have Daniel 5:14 and Daniel 6:3. Now, I have heard about you that a spirit of the gods is in you, and that illumination, insight, and extraordinary wisdom have been found in you. And then chapter 6, verse 3, then this Daniel began distinguishing himself among the commissioners and satraps because he possessed an extraordinary spirit, and the king planned to appoint him over the entire kingdom. I know you're probably chuckling because in those verses that word appears 2 times. But it's interesting because, as you know, on my devotional, if you remember the description of this podcast, I shared with you on how this whole entire book began. And I talked about my 3-ring binders, and my 3-ring binders are notes from years and years and years of writing, just notes about books of the Bible. And I have my 3-ring binders alphabetized, and that's kind of where this book just was birthed. And I was looking back through my notes, and back in 2018, I wrote a little prayer about chapter 6, verse 3. And in my translation at the time I was reading, it used the word excellent instead of the word extraordinary. So I wrote this prayer asking God to give me an excellent spirit. The online dictionary defines extraordinary as going beyond what is usual, regular, or customary. And when I first originally heard this word, it immediately sets the expectation for someone to be amazing and remarkable or exceptional in whatever they do and what they stand for. And I believe, my belief is that we all fit this description with those in our inner circle and sphere of influence because we are close to those in our commonality sphere. And I think that oftentimes, when we have a circle of influence or, a network of people, we can be viewed that way in certain aspects. Like we might have a trait that is set apart or that just is a lot more dynamic in our circle of friends. And so it's okay to have some extraordinary things about us. And yet, oftentimes when we are around our circle of influence, when we're so common with each other, that sometimes our extraordinary traits will get overlooked, I guess is a good word. So it just depends on the dynamics of it. It depends on your friend group. It depends on the roles that those friends have in your life. But Daniel, he was known for his extraordinary wisdom and spirit across literally the entire kingdom. However, having a reputation for being extraordinary does not mean that we will find favor among every single person that we come in contact with. And yet Daniel, they tried finding things against him and couldn't. And then he got promoted and probably made those people even more mad. I mean, he was one of 3 leaders who were over other leaders. So Daniel, even though he had this great reputation of being extraordinary, he still had opposition for those who did not like his decisions and for those people who didn't like what he stood for, especially with his prayer time. I mean, they even tried to find fault in him, but they couldn't. So they went to the king and had him write a decree to try and get him into trouble. It's like having opposition can oftentimes cause the spotlight to become even brighter on our extraordinary characteristics. And that's exactly what happened with Daniel. I mean, Daniel's light had this big, huge spotlight on it. In fact, so big that he was forced into the lion's den. And then there was more spotlight on him. People tried to trap him, and it did not work. We can be extraordinary with any belief system of life. But as Christ followers, the question would be, are we extraordinary in our walk of faith like Daniel? Many Christ followers fall short in, even just in living out an extraordinary, influential life. So why is that? As I've lived through the years and been a pastor's kid and leader and speaker, my belief is that fear of man is one reason why even Christ followers with just a loving heart for God and just, really wanting to love on him through their life, they still might fall short in living out their extraordinary, influential life because of being afraid of man. We can also let our passion for our faith gets squelched, especially when the spotlight gets a little brighter and, the opposition gets a little louder. We get a little nervous and fearful, and it's a human trait to want to be liked and to want to have 100% of people around us agreeing with us. That's a human trait. Yet Daniel understood this scenario, and he did not sway at all in being extraordinary when facing the lion's den or when his friends were put in the fiery furnace. He did not remain silent when he stood before a king to interpret dreams or writings on a wall. He stayed steadfast, keeping his faith and keeping his reputation intact and allowing the spotlight to be even brighter on him and his extraordinary characteristics. He let the extraordinary shine, especially during the hard times that he faced. So, how do we become extraordinary? Is it living a life with passion in our faith during even the little daily decisions? I would say yes. If we center our every decision on our passion for Christ, we then build this extraordinary life. It's not just ordinary, we've got extra in it. And it's also taking a stand when others aren't and living a life so that no one can find fault in our behavior and in our actions. And I'm not saying that we have to be perfect, but the people who were opposed to Daniel couldn't find anything wrong with him to throw him into jail. And when they finally had to, have the king change the laws to make it happen, God saved him. Daniel was not afraid. His windows were open and people knew how he was living. He was very bold and very public with his faith. He had no fear. He basically had this idea of God is in control and whatever happens, happens. It seemed like that was his attitude. It's like, okay, And his friends, they remained steadfast. I talked about that in the accountability session or the episode. They didn't appear in this moment to be worried in the least, especially when they got into the fiery furnace. They all had faith, and Daniel even wanted to make sure his heart was right towards the king. Those are little decisions that we can make to be extraordinary. So today's challenge to dig deeper is a question for you. Will you accept God's commission to let your extraordinary characters shine? Do not be afraid of man any longer, and expect that the little daily challenges that come up in your life are going to come. Watch for those challenges that may come. And when they come, you make a choice in that moment to be extraordinary, be full of faith. That's today's challenge. Accept the commission that you are going to be led by the Spirit in those little nudges that come along your way, especially when the challenges come. Instead of being scared or being afraid of man, accept the commission to let your faith shine. Because I know we all are going to face challenges. We all are going to face opposition. But if we accept the commission to be extraordinary in our faith, our lives will be full of extraordinary. If you can just mentally and emotionally and spiritually just accept that position and that role, then you've passed the challenge for today. And I want you to pull out your journal tonight. And I want you to write down the opportunities that come your way today to be extraordinary. And I'm telling you, when we accept the commission from God and when He tells us yes, or when we say yes, there's going to be opportunities, whether it's an opposition or a tragic issue that comes up or even a challenge at work. There's going to be an opposition. And when that opportunity comes, how do you respond extraordinary? So when you're writing in your journal, just write it down. Write down what happened today that caused you to be allowed the opportunity to be extraordinary, and write down how you responded. And if you didn't respond perfectly in that immediate instance, but yet you responded extraordinary a few moments later, you're still growing. And this is how we make the Bible applicable for our today. We make it applicable by reading the Word, looking at what other people did in moments of crises and moments of opposition, and we respond and learn to respond in those extraordinary ways. And I hope today's devotion inspired you to continue chugging along, reading along, and focusing on our growth every single day to make the living Word true in our hearts. And if you don't yet have the devotional, go to my show notes or go to anitacordell.com, and you can also pick up my journal. It's never too late to pick up the journal. If you don't have it, you might as well just go ahead and get it. You will be able to see the notes in years to come, and you will be so amazed at where you were and the things that you went through in a year from now, or the things that you prayed for in a year from now. If you have not given me a review, if you could just go to Amazon and give me a review, it's going to help the Amazon algorithms to continually boost it out there and to help other people, and that's what I want. So until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you.